Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the SP football cards from 1993 through 1995. Now, when Upper Deck launched in 1989, they were a baseball-only set. And then in 1991, when they launched their first hockey set, they established kind of a foundation of making sure that their sets across all the different sports looked a little bit different. And they carried that basically into 1994, and at that point they began to do pretty much monocultural designs for some of their brands across all the sports. Fortunately, starting in 1993, that would not entirely be the case with SP, so SP would have little variations here and there. Usually, SP baseball and football were almost identical, but not quite, so there are little variations that you can see from time to time, and I'll point those out as I go along. So understand that you're not going to see the exact same thing, and it makes each set kind of exciting as a result of that. So in 1993, when SP created its first set with baseball, they created a really phenomenal set, one that heightened the level of what cards could be as an expectation for everybody to follow. And it was difficult to really be able to surpass the set that they made. Fortunately, in football, they made little tweaks that did do exactly that. So football, for the most part, is slightly better than baseball, but not by a lot. When they made their football set, a few months after the baseball set, they started off with their rookies, and this was a really good place for them to start because the rookies were basically like a big celebration of just what Upper Deck could do. In the baseball set, they had used just a foil treatment behind the players, but here they used an etched foil. And when I'm referring to etched foil, there are two types of etching. One is the type that we're used to with glass, where you use acid and it makes basically just like a star pattern of little grooves. The other type is really more of a brushed metal approach, which is where you make a whole bunch of striations all in one pattern, all in one direction. And because they're all in the same direction, light reflects off of all of them in the same direction. And if you make another set of grooves in another pattern, another direction, then light will reflect in another direction there. So that means that as you move a card around, different parts of the card are going to light up at different times, and it makes a very dynamic kind of an experience. So whenever I refer to etching in terms of the classic acid approach, I'm going to refer to it as a modeled etching. So when I say foil etching, I'm usually referring to the brushed metal approach. So assume that that's what I'm referring to. And with these rookies, they used foil etching. Now the player himself was basically just a cutout of a normal glossy shot. The whole background is what they did foil etched, except for two little boxes down in the corner where they had the team name with the two different colors of the team. But otherwise, it's all foil etched. And it's a really, really dynamic card. And it's not overdone. So everything's balanced well enough that the whole card feels about right, and the player never gets lost in the entire spectacle of the card. What's really impressive is this is the first time anybody had done this. And so these cards were really a shocking experience to see. And this laid down far better than the baseball set. This laid down the true gauntlet of just what everybody was going to have to be competing with as the mid-90s were coming, looking forward into the decade. The card had some fine detailing with some gold foil in all of this, and the fine detailing meant that the pictures, which tended to be pretty complex, all of the detailing in the picture carried through. So as a viewer, you spent more time looking at this card. You didn't need a big bold image to make a statement. The whole card was a statement all of itself. The card back was pretty good, actually. It's kind of a mess of things, exactly the same as had been done in baseball. But even though it's kind of a mess, it's a good mess. It's really well balanced. Everything in it works in a really nice way. So it's not as glorious as the front, but it's definitely a back that the front is worthy of having. The main cards in the set are carried by the image, and the images are very well chosen in this set. They have a simple border on the bottom that has a team color to white fade, and then they have some gold detailing in it with the logo and some other little accoutrements. And that's pretty much the card, and so it really kind of showcases the image. And since they did such a good job of selecting these images, they carry really well, and it's a really fun and impressive set to see. I like the fact that they got rid of the boxes up on the top corner, which they'd used in baseball. It was totally unnecessary, and the football cards, I think, benefit very much. The card backs are basically identical to baseball. The big image is really good. Down at the bottom, I love the color fade from white to a team color that is very subtle, so the white doesn't overpower down at the bottom. Now you may notice that some of the cards in this set have a silver foil emblem, either rookies or Pro Bowl. This is not like a parallel. There are no parallels in the set. This is just a designation of this is a rookie that's not featured in the beginning of the set, or this player is in a Pro Bowl. So it's kind of like what Topps did in the mid to late 80s, with all their cards. And then they have one insert set, and that's their All-Pro set. These cards are die cut at the top, and they have gold foil. Unlike baseball, which used copper for their entire set, here they used gold for all of it. And so they have a gold detailing up along the die cutting at the top, and they have a big gold emblem, and they have a black background behind the player, which would be great, except they have some not very well colored text below. Otherwise, these are really fantastic cards. And the card backs are kind of busy, but for 1993, for an insert for 93, this is about like what you would expect. So I would say that this is one of the best inserts for 93, but overall it could have been a lot better. And remember the pattern of the die cutting. For 1994, they had the ability to kind of up their game, or they had the ability to carry on their tradition, and they decided to carry on with the tradition. So for the rookies for this card, they started again with the rookies. They decided instead of doing the more fine detailed images that they'd done in 93, across this whole set they were going to do bigger, bolder images. And that gave them some freedom. So that meant that the cards themselves weren't delicate affairs, they were more blocky. And so instead of having a couple little boxes down at the bottom, they had a big box along the side with the team color in it. And then the background behind the player is a little bit busier simply because of the fact that the player is a much bigger presence in this card. Otherwise, it's very much like the previous year. It's just kind of a half step down. It's still probably the best rookie card for any of these players, but it is still kind of a half step down. Now on the card back, they have basically just one big image, and then they kind of ghost some stuff over so you can have text and you can have the stat bar down below. And I find it ironic that the ghosting almost mimics what they would do in basketball for their insert set in the upcoming 94-95 season. It's not identical, but it has that same arc to it. Now, this is 1994, and for Upper Deck, they decided that they were going to do parallels for basically everybody. So, you get a parallel, you get a parallel, you get a parallel. Everybody gets a parallel. And so for SP, the parallel that they got was die cut. And the die cutting, I told you to remember the die cutting pattern, it's the same die cutting from the 93 insert. That's really the only difference that they have. Now, the die cut pattern is okay, it's not great, but it would be nice if they had done something a little bit different to kind of accent it. But overall, it was a nice thing that they got. Now, the main set suffered quite a bit in 1994. They covered the entire front with foil, and that diminishes the opportunity for the textures in the card to really carry through. So whatever qualities the front might have had basically got lost by the foil, and that was a disappointment. Like I said, the images tended to be very much front and forward. Over on the right side, they had a black band, and the band had two sides. On the inside, it was black all the way through. On the outside, it faded down to gold at the bottom. And they have a bunch of little SP logos in gold that disappear into the gold at the bottom. It's a cool concept, but the card's too blocky, so it doesn't really carry as anything special. I remember at the time when these cards came out, I knew that they were cool because they were SP cards, not because they looked good. Likewise, these cards have parallels. On the back, it's kind of a stripped down version of everything they'd done, just a big image, and there's really not much to it. Now, like in 93, in 94, they had designators for Pro Bowl players. They didn't have designators for rookies because I don't think they had any rookies in the main player set of this set, but for the Pro Bowl players, they did differentiate that. And so again, these are not parallels, it's just a silver emblem that's on the card. They had one insert set, and this is, we'd like to refer to this as the Holoview set because it really is the Holoview set. It's basically identical to the baseball set, but they actually call it Pro Bowl, and the cards are numbered PB. So for the veterans, it's Pro Bowl players, and then for the rookies, it's future Pro Bowl players. The card set has a black band on the right side with a black to blue fade on it. Every card has that. And then it has a hologram not across the whole bottom, but raised up a little bit that crosses over into that band. And then there's a player picture with a background that disappears behind the hologram and appears below, with the player continuing across the front. And the hologram has a picture from the Pro Bowl of Jerome Bettis running away from Cortez Kennedy with Steve Atwater closing in on him. So, Bus, brace yourself. And this is a really nice card. The plasticky quality to it makes the non-hologram part of the card not all that great, but the hologram's really great. So I like these cards, and the backs are pretty good. But these cards did also come in parallels, and unlike baseball where the parallel cards had a red color, these are identical. They just have the die cutting up at the top. Now 94 also came with two commemorative cards, Dan Marino and Jerry Rice. Dan Marino hit the 300 touchdown passes mark, and Jerry Rice broke the record for the most touchdowns scored at 127. So both players got commemorative cards. These are horizontal cards, and they have a cutout of the player in front of a different image of the player all in etched foil, gold foil. And it's a lot of gold, and this is a well-balanced card, so this could easily be too much, but basically the image of the player in front of the gold foil is pretty much always visible. So this is the kind of card that you can put out on a display, because it is a gorgeous card. It looks fantastic. And on the back, it's basically what a commemorative card would look like on the back. So this is a huge success for this particular pair of cards. Now for 1995, I need to note one thing very distinctive between the football set and the baseball set. Aside from the fact that football has no parallels, the baseball set had a lot of die cuts in it. All of the subset cards were die cut in baseball. In football, none of the main set cards were die cut, and there were no parallels. The rookies in this set are once again foil etched, but interestingly enough, football cards had gold detailing on the 93 and 94 set. In 95, they went with copper detailing. So the background of this player is all copper, and then they have what looks like an upside-down 1990 Pro Set card in terms of the bordering. And it's a really, really great design with really well-selected colors. It's black on the outside, dark green on the inside, and then that really cool color of the copper in between with the player in between. It just really does a great job of focusing in on these rookies, making this a great looking rookie class. And this was a very good rookie class too, so this is a great place to have these really good quality rookie cards. So I really love these rookies. On the back, they have a lot of things they did, nothing came through very well. You may notice that this looks a lot like the card back of the 96 Ultra rookie insert cards. It's not the first time the Ultra would have used somebody's design from the previous year, if that is the case, but it does look quite similar. But these SP backs are okay, they're there, it's not that big of a deal. Now the main set, unfortunately, they used the same 95 design that Upper Deck had been using with the arrow border on the left side. And I really like the copper detailing. I think it looks really good. The problem is that in the inside of the arrow, the etched foil portion with all the little SP logos, they used the same hollow foil finish as they did with the baseball parallels. And for a parallel, it looks pretty good, but for a main card, it doesn't look that great. So these cards are kind of anemic. The images are a lot better than had been done in 94, but these cards overall didn't really have much punch, which was a little disappointing. The card backs are okay. Again, they weren't doing very well in the card backs in the set. And this particular set, they didn't have Pro Bowls designated, but they did have a number of rookies showing up in the main set, and some pretty prominent rookies, including Terrell Davis. So this had a little copper logo down in the bottom right-hand corner. And these rookies actually look really good. So basically all the rookies in the 95 SP set are among the best looking rookies for that particular year. Now the set had two insert sets, and basically they took the confusion of the previous year, where is it Pro Bowl or is it Hall of View, they just split the two. So we'll start off with the All-Pro cards. The All-Pro cards are basically like the 93 insert set. They have the same die cut pattern, and they have some silver foil up at the top. Now this time it is an etched pattern, so it's kind of modeled, and they did that at the top, and they flipped it and put it at the bottom, so it's double die cut. And then in between on the borders, they have basically a continuation of the silver foil by having the name and having All Pro or Future All Pro on either side, creating a full border around the whole card. And then they have kind of a narrow shot in the middle with a metallic silver background behind the player, which makes the player really pop. Now in the case of the Bears here, there's not a lot of color in the uniform, so the player doesn't pop as much. But if it was, say, the Kansas City Chiefs, that card would really stand out. So it's a pretty good design. It's not a very dynamic card, but it is a good design. And then on the back, it's kind of a weakened version of the card front. But this came with a parallel that was gold foil versus all the silver. Now the metallic finish, the silver tone finish behind the player, that remains silver, but everything else turns gold. And the gold card pops. This is a fantastic card. I really enjoy this card. The other parallel they did was Hall of View, and this was a big letdown because it's a horizontal card and it's kind of blocky, but they have this lime green color that they have in the card, and the plasticky quality of the card surface means that the image in the card's front doesn't really carry. The hologram's really good. It's a shot of the player as kind of a backdrop, and then in front of that is a 3D portrait hologram of the player. So the player is there with a picture of him behind. And I like how it looks. I like how it carries, and I really like the fact that the picture in the back is the same player. On the back, they basically play with the exact same design, and I'm disappointed that they didn't use the same image on the back of the card as they used as the backdrop on the front, but it would have been a nice thing that they did, but they didn't think to do that. But fortunately, they did do a parallel of this where they die cut the top and all of the lime green gets replaced by red. So these look fantastic. And you may notice that the die cutting looks familiar. That's because it's the same die cutting as the commemorative cards. Speaking of which, in '95 they also did commemorative cards, and they did it for, well, Dan Marino and another Niner great. In this case, they did a tribute to Joe Montana. So with Dan Marino, he finally had passed Fran Tarkenton for the most career touchdown passes. For Joe Montana, he was retiring, so it was farewell. The way that they did these cards was they have a metallic silver surface with gold foil, or they have a metallic gold background with silver foil for the text. And then on the back they have, basically it's the same color, it's a typical commemorative card back, and that's the design that they went with. But they also had case toppers of these cards, which are significantly larger. And these are done in exactly the same fashion, except the background. Upper Deck knew that all of that metallic finish would look it wouldn't look very good. So they actually put scratch marks across it. Those scratch marks are not damaged, that's actually the design. If you look down at the foil text, you'll notice the scratch marks don't cross that. They did it because that's just too much real estate for the metallic finish. So with the scratch marks, the card looks better, it looks right. The only other thing they did for '95 is they did a tribute for Joe Montana across all their sets. So Upper Deck, Choice, and SP all got portions of the set. It's a 20 card set, although there's a separate unnumbered checklist for every single portion, so there are actually 23 cards in the set. For SP, it's cards number 17 through 20, and they cover just the Kansas City Chiefs phase of Joe Montana's career. And the big distinction of these cards is the fact that they have a silver tone foil etching background behind Joe in his Kansas City Chiefs uniform, so this really stands out. These are really well contrasted cards. So that's what they did for SP, but in '95 they also made a separate SP set, which was called SP Championship. This is basically like a retail version. These cards are very simple in comparison. They're very stripped down, they're very basic, and they sure feel like it. The set starts off with rookies, but they have 45 rookies in their subset. It's a much larger group because it was a later release. And these cards they're all full bleed. There are no borders on any of these cards. All the rookies are a solid foil finish, and they have an emblem down at the bottom, and then they have text on the side for the subset, which is Future Champions, and then they have almost nothing else on the card front. The back's kind of anemic, and it's in silver, and there's an image on there. It's basically that. But this whole set came with a die cut parallel. And the die cut is basically two little stair steps and an arc on the top. It's actually a decent die cut. It's not very dynamic, but it does look kind of cool. And they replaced all the silver with gold, both on the front as well as on the back. So these cards looked better in the parallel, but not great. In the main set, the cards were a little bit more anemic and a little bit better both at the same time. They got rid of the foil on the front. That was a good thing. But the player name is just text kind of floating there. They have a little gold band going over to the plaque, the oval plaque where they have the team name. And so it shows you where the text is, but you don't really see the player name on it. Basically, you see the little plaque down here, you see the logo up at the top, and that's about it. So these cards do feel a lot cheaper. And on the card back, again, it's not very impressive. Like with the rookies, the main set's parallels are all die cut with the silver turning to gold. Now, the only thing of note in the SP Championship set is their one parallel, which is Showcase of the Playoffs. This is some rookies and a bunch of veterans, and these cards have kind of a speckled white border around the outside, and then they have some silver detailing on the inside, and then they have the image of the player surrounded by an etched foil background. And this is okay. It's actually not that bad, but it doesn't really pop. It doesn't have a lot of dynamism, primarily because the silver detailing, it doesn't really give a lot. And then the back just looks like an SP Championship card. But the parallel of this card, I really like it. Now you'll notice that on the main card, they have a big patch of border up at the top with the SP logo kind of extending into it. Well, when you go to the die cut, they trim that out. And now all of a sudden, all the border is balanced. The logo becomes a really neat little feature. And then the gold detailing, the gold foil detailing just makes the whole card pop. This is one of the best SP insert sets, in my opinion. Just the parallel. The main cards, they're okay. But these parallels, I really love them. So that is basically what they did for the first 3 years of SP cards for football. And it's fun to look at them. In some ways they did a phenomenal job, and in other ways they just didn't do all that great. But overall, I think that on average it was a little bit better than baseball, but it's fun to see all the different textures, because really when you look at every single set and every single sport, they're all a little bit different, and it makes it really fun. So let me know what you think of these sets in the comments below. I loved these sets when they came out. I remember the 93 set. It was shocking. I remember the fun of the 95 set. And I remember that over time, I was always kind of puzzled why the 95 set didn't really carry, but some cards would. So it was kind of fun with all of that. So if you enjoyed this video, I hope that you'll hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, I urge you to do so and check out the other videos that I've done. And thank you very much for watching.